Drag Queen of the Week. I am here today with Grace the Face. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. How are you?
Not too shabby at all. Now, you also go by another name, Grace Oni Smith.
Yes.
But everyone can call you Grace, I assume.
Absolutely.
And Grace by name and Grace by nature.
Grace by name, Grace by nature. That's debatable, but you know, I think that's supposed to be the idea.
Well, we can let the viewers, the listeners at home, judge for themselves.
Yes.
Now, at what age do you think you were first aware of drag as a thing?
Well, I think for me, I was very aware of gender from a very young age, because I'm transgender and I transitioned and done all that stuff as well, but I'm also a drag artist and drag performer. So I think for me, gender was something that was really, I was very aware of from a very, very young age. You know, I can remember, I think the first time I realised the difference between gender was when I went to school, primary school. I never went to nursery or anything like that. So I didn't realise how different I was compared to other boys and girls until I went and was in a class of like 40 of them. And I think that's when I sort of realised, you know, that there is real sort of differences between men and women. And as I grew up, I started, you know, I had long hair, and in my early teens, I sort of was wearing makeup and things like that. And then I think my real first sort of experiences of drag were sort of like John Waters movies.
Yeah.
You
so
know,
a bit more of the trashy end.
A bit more of the trashy end, definitely. But I think that's the first time that I became really aware of it. I mean, I grew up in quite a rural area in Cumbria as well. So
I can't imagine there was much exposure.
There wasn't much exposure, and everything that I discovered was kind of through my love of like punk music and goth music and, you know, the music that I listened to. So I very much became aware of, like, as opposed to drag, more gender benders.
Yeah.
So the New Romantics and like the punk, like post-punk goth movement.
Yeah. Lots of androgyny. That
Yeah, lots of androgyny and sort of gender bending. And I think that was the first time I really realised that you could really play with your gender and your appearance.
Ah, very cool. So from your early years then, who would you consider to be like the main influences?
The main influences, I think I was brought up with David Bowie. My mum's a massive Bowie fan, and I think...
I don't know anyone whose mums isn't a huge Bowie fan.
But I think, you know, that had a really profound effect on me, being surrounded by his music, and, you know, especially the... his work in the 70s and the early 80s as well. I think that was really sort of powerful sort of inspiration in my life when I was younger.
And what about sort of as you've got older? Is there anyone else that you sort of taken into the fold that's sort of been a big influence for you?
I don't know. I think aesthetically, like my style of drag and my style of dress up is very much. I do different looks, different characters, different ideas every time. So it's always something different. I think I'm very much inspired by people's attitudes. Yeah. I think Grace Jones is a huge inspiration for me as a woman, because she owned her masculinity and her femininity, and that made her so powerful and so sexy.
And also a little bit scary.
And a little bit scary, and I think, and to be honest, I think there's people out there that might arguably say that I'm a bit intimidating and stuff when I'm all dressed up. But I think that's...
Well, to be fair, I mean,
about owning yourself, isn't it?
Well, exactly. You know, part of it is the show and the spectacle, isn't it?
Absolutely.
So if you haven't induced a little bit of fear,
but then they get talking to me, and I'm like, "You're right, babe."
No, put them at ease then.
Let's have a gin and tonic.
Lovely stuff. So, how did you sort of first break into the drag scene?
Okay, well, like I said, I was, dressing up, and I was very much like a punk goth kid. When I was a teenager living in Cumbria. Not good. Chills down the spine. And I moved away when I was 16, and I went to Newcastle originally.
Okay.
And so there was a bit more of a gay scene there.
Yeah, there's like 3 pubs or something, is it?
Yeah, I think there's a little strip. There's a little strip, and the drag was. I think there was a lady who I think might still be working called Ophelia Balls.
Okay.
And I saw her a few times, but it was very much that classic sort of Danny LaRue, cabaret, you know, kind of style of drag. I wasn't really aware of anyone like me, so Newcastle was weird because it was like I went somewhere to feel more accepted, but then I also didn't fit in there as well because there was nobody doing that really crazy sort of gender bending stuff that I was doing.
Yeah.
And there was certainly nowhere to go and listen to the music that I loved. But yeah, so after that I went to London, and I lived in between London and Nottingham. And that's when I really started getting into like clubs. There were, you know, clubs filled with people who were like me and who were...
Did it feel like coming home almost?
Absolutely. There were two clubs in particular called Cashpoint and Boombox, and I went to them a couple of times. And then there was like Torture Garden, Big Fetish Night, stuff like that.
Yeah.
They were really sort of like amazing, you know, being in a space with 3,000 people who were all dressed up and all being freaky and crazy. And I think that really sort of, it was like you said, like a coming home, you know, realising that there were other people.
Yeah, I'm not the only one.
I'm not the only freaky goth tranny. Yes. So, and then I sort of started doing little hosting jobs and, you know, things like that. So that's how I started getting into it.
Where were you doing the hosting?
Just various different clubs in like Soho, East London, things like that. But very sort of like small gigs, you know, nothing humongous really.
Did you ever have a drag mother?
I didn't have a drag mother. Do you know what? And this is something that, like, it's very recent, is the idea of drag family. It's a very American idea.
Yeah.
And obviously drag culture developed very differently in this country to the way it did in America. So I'd never had a drag mother. My whole style was created by me, and I think a lot of like my sort of fundamental style was built up around growing up as a trans person who was a punk and a goth in a rural community.
Yeah.
You know, I did used to get a lot of bullying, physical violence, you know, emotional, physical bullying. And it became my way of saying, bleep you, you know, like this. I couldn't fight back. I wasn't strong enough to fight back. But do you know what? I'm going to shave my eyebrows off and draw them on halfway at my forehead and terrify the living daylights out of you.
Just because I can.
Yeah, so
nice.
I think it was quite anarchic for me, and it was definitely an armour and a sort of, you know, and then as I grew up and I had sort of accepted, you know, my path and my journey, it became more about sort of, for me, holding a magnifying glass up to myself.
Okay.
And so by expressing myself and creating personas and characters, I'd actually be highlighting something more about Grace.
Yeah, sort of like a sort of a self-exploration almost.
I think like one of the, for me as a trans person, you know, everything of being trans is about looking at yourself and scrutinising absolutely every detail of yourself. And, you know, I had many years where I sort of was very, very depressed and very sort of a lost soul, really. And so drag for me really helped me to accept the things that made me different, accept the things that made me special, and turn them into pluses as opposed to negatives.
That's fantastic. So when did you bring it up to Manchester then?
I moved to Manchester 4 years ago now.
Okay. And how have you found the difference in the scenes between London and Manchester? Is there much of a difference?
Oh yeah, a lot of difference. Everybody up here's got a lot more sense of humour about themselves. They love dressing up. Yeah, definitely. I think in London people take it very seriously and take themselves very seriously. And, you know, I think some people go out to be photographed, do you know what I mean, in London?
Right.
Whereas people get dressed up and go out to have a really good night in Manchester, and they do just have a little bit more of a sense of humour about themselves. And that's what I love, you know. Although I love being flawless and gorgeous and, you know, all of those lovely things, I also love to have a really good night, and I love to have a good laugh with people. And
I mean, if you can't go out and have a good time, what's the point of going out?
well, exactly. Just stay home and take some pictures of yourself.
Yeah,
Play some loud music, sniff some poppers, and take a picture of yourself, and then go to bed.
Yeah, off your tits on Popper's selfie.
Selfie. That's it.
Well, good night at home. Dear, shut up.
Absolutely.
Dear me. So with the experimentation with sort of gender and the various styles over the years, has there been much of a change in look, or has there been?
Yeah, absolutely. Like when I was a teenager, I was very like Susie Sue, like Johnny Slut from like Specimen sort of look. Kids, if you don't know who that is, get on Google now because she's fierce. So it was very like punk, goth, Mohicans, ripped clothes.
Yeah.
Like I actually had a dress which I buried in my back garden and let like all the worms eat at it. I've recently given it to my drag daughter, Violet Blonde.
Oh.
So yeah.
Fantastic.
So she's got this mangy, like, sort of Victorian dead prostitute dress that I used to wear when I was...
That's amazing.
But,
the things you do for an outfit.
The things you do for an outfit. So, yeah, it was very kind of, like, confrontational and kind of, you know, fuck you and that kind of vibe with my look. And then now I feel like I'm very much inspired by other things. I feel like, you know... my drag's very inspired by art and fashion, and I think, you know, I didn't pick the name Grace the Face. Grace the Face was sort of given to me by people on the scene because every time I show up with a different look, a different character. It's not, oh look, there's Grace wearing the same old shit all over again. It's, there's Grace.
Look at brand new face.
You know, brand new face, serving face, you know, whole different idea. And I kind of like the idea of... how in fashion a designer might design for a certain type of woman. Like my woman this season is, you know, and that's kind of what I think about. So I might be, you know, a shipwrecked pirate queen who has got nothing but lemons lemons growing on her island. So she spends the whole time working on her tan and like putting lemon juice in her hair to make it go blonde. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. Like, I might be, you know, like a 1960s supermodel with like a bowl cut, and you know, I might be like a painting, or a work, like a piece of pop art, or you know, I like to have different sort of ideas and a different process every time.
Fantastic. What's the sort of the most labour-intensive sort of outfit and face you had to pull off?
I mean, I make a lot of my, like, I do a lot of my own hair. Well, I don't, nobody else does my hair. I do my hair. And I do all my costumes and things like that. I'm trying to think. Probably when I did, we did the Manchester International Festival with my night, which is called Drunk at Vogue. We did the Manchester International Festival last year, and I made 3 costumes. One for me, one for Anaphylactic, who's like my drag sister, and one for Cheddar Gorgeous, who's my other drag sister. And we did a performance which was like a disco homage to Macbeth's Three Witches. So I made these costumes which were all made out of, sounds kind of trashy, but it's not, because when you actually see it, it looks amazing. But it's all made out of bin bags that have been cut into really thin strips. Yeah. So they almost look like, you know, when you pull VHS out of a tape. Oh, no, all the kids at home don't know what VHS is.
Google it.
Google VHS. Yeah. So it kind of looked like that, and then it's all these huge costumes made out of it. So I had like huge wings that like blowed in like the wind cannon, and like Anna had this huge dress. And
please tell me there are photos or YouTube videos
of this. There's photos of everything that we do. There is. Yeah.
Awesome stuff. What sort of events are you going to in the near future? What nights do you really enjoy going to?
Well, my main night that I do is called Drunk at Vogue, and if people haven't heard of it, it's basically sort of a house disco night, based in Crack, which is in the Northern Quarter, Crack Gallery. Lovely little venue. It's a gorgeous little venue, and we dressed it up and it looks gorgeous as well. It's kind of just like a total blank canvas, so you can do whatever you want in there. But Drunk at Vogue's kind of house, disco. It's got that really polished, sort of finessed finish, but it's in a dirty backstreet club. Yeah. We do a lot of like promo videos for that and really big parties. And we've actually got a big party coming up on the 2nd of May, which we're actually holding in a boxing gym in Salford. Okay. So it's going to be a real extravaganza. I think it's going to be about 300 to 400 people, and there's a huge boxing ring, and we're having aerial performers. Wow. Is this a ticketed event? It's a ticketed event. So if people want to buy the tickets, where can they the best thing to do is go on the Drunk at Vogue website, or the Drunk at Vogue Facebook, so just www.facebook.com /drunk at Vogue. So it's in Evolve in Salford, and it's just going to be an absolute spectacular. We're having like drag queen boxing, and then it's all just got, I think the main thing that I love about Drunk at Vogue is that it's one of those nights where everybody's on the dance floor all night long, and they've all got a really big smile on their face, because there's something about that music that just gets into your soul. And people might not listen to disco and that kind of era of music very often, but when you go into that space and there's beautiful queens everywhere and the place has got disco globes everywhere, you know, that's what just makes everybody feel fabulous, I think.
They're in the zone.
Absolutely.
Lovely stuff. So what's your opinion of the drag scene in Manchester currently?
I think it's really moved on so quickly. I mean, when I first moved here, you know, there were a few nights that were going on, but they were very much alternative, sort of underground nights. And I think there weren't very many places for people to do drag off of the village.
Yeah.
I mean, there's nights like Cha Cha Boudoir, which is celebrating its 1 year anniversary on the 25th, which I'm performing at because I'm fabulous.
I'll be there.
Yes, absolutely.
Well, I won't be there alone. I'll be bringing a puppet.
Oh, lovely.
A drag puppet.
A drag puppet.
Yeah.
So there's Cha Cha Boudoir, and I think Cha Cha Boudoir really made people feel that they could do drag and give people that space to really express themselves. Yeah, and I think there's a lot of young people now.
Yeah, I was going to say, there's a lot of photos I've seen from the event, and everyone, even if they're not doing drag, they dress up.
Yeah, absolutely.
They put makeup on. They're flamboyant. It's outrageous. Yeah. I mean, is it like that every single time?
Yes, definitely, absolutely.
Amazing.
I think drag sort of moves in waves. There's people who do it constantly, like myself. I think there's me, Sheila Blige, Anaphylactic, Cheddar Gorgeous, and Patrick Baston. We were when I sort of moved here, we were the sort of really only people who were doing drag, working in drag, in the queer scene, in the queer alternative scene.
Yeah.
So I think now there has been a real influx in people, you know, wanting to do drag. I think it's mainly because of RuPaul's Drag Race.
That'll be my next question. Yeah. I mean, it's proved hugely popular, but do you think it's caused a good influx of drag queens, or is there a sort of a balance to be had, perhaps?
I think it makes a lot of people want to do drag, but I don't think a lot of people are attracted to the idea of being a drag queen. But the thing that really turns me on about drag is seeing people's artistry and seeing people's passion. And there's a lot of young people who are coming through, who I look at them and I'm like, wow, God, bloody hell, you're, 17, 18? And, you know, it's lovely to see people who are young and who are passionate about drag and who are putting the time in and putting the hours in, because when you do, that's fabulous, you know. Yeah. Like I say, that's the artistry of it and the fun of it. You know, when I was growing up, I didn't have that. I didn't have anywhere to go. I didn't have a club to go to. I didn't have a pub to go to. I didn't have friends who listened to the same music or did the same things. Yeah. You know, so it's lovely to see that. And I think the only negative thing, if I had to say one negative thing that's come out of Drag Race, it would be that there's a lot of people who watch it and then feel like they are able to judge drag queens.
Right.
I always find people don't do it to me because I'm terrifying. You know, who's going to go up to a 6'2" tall, you know, hyper foxy dominatrix bitch and go, I think your wig's a bit crap. You're just not going to do it, are you? But I think some of the younger ones, I think people can go up and go, oh, you know, like this and that. And I think I always end up saying to people, if you've not had the balls to put a pair of high heels on and a wig on your head and makeup on your face and walk out of your house and walk down the street and do that, then you're in absolutely no place to judge a drag queen. No matter how polished or busted they are, you're in no place, because it takes a lot of balls to do that, to have the guts to do that.
Yeah. And you mentioned before you are sort of semi-official drag mother.
I'm a semi-official drag mother. I'm a bit dubious about it because I'm not really old enough to be someone's mum. I'm like, Auntie.
Drag aunt. We'll go with drag aunt.
Yeah, so I'd be happy with it. I'm happy with the status of, you know, I'm someone that looks after and helps people develop their looks and develop their ideas, and is kind of a motherly role, but I don't think I'm old enough to be a mum yet.
So to finish up with, what is the key bit of advice you would give to any drag daughter or any drag niece?
Drag niece. I think, you know, young people in general, you know, just be yourself 110%, no matter what that means. You know, I grew up in a place where my self-expression was absolutely not encouraged at all, and it took me many years to get through what I had to get through to find my happiness and to feel able to express myself 100%. And so I would say definitely people who are living in Manchester, you've got a beautiful, vibrant, colourful scene around you, filled with gorgeous people and places to go. So just do that 100%, 110%, and yeah, that's what I would probably say. And also, don't put yourself in any situations where you could be taken advantage of.
Nice. Well, Grace the Face, thank you so much for coming in today.
Thank you.
Have a lovely weekend, and we'll see you again soon.
I will.
Drag Queen of the Week.